I love this idea of being able to bet against someone else's parlay. Like that just sounds like gold to me.
Sounds like free money.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. How do we do that? Well, we give you the tools, the knowledge, and all of the tactics that you need to thrive while teaching you the pitfalls of the sports books and what they're trying to do to take your money. I'm your host, Shane Mercer. That guy over there, Andrew Pace, founder and CEO of In Play Live. And we've got an amazing show for you today. Really excited for it. We are going to hear from the CEO of Stax, a sports betting exchange. So that's coming at you in a few moments. But first, remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at InPlay Live. And if you want to see what InPlay Live is all about on the inside, we've got a promo code for you. That is Behind the Lines, all caps. So that will get you the very best deal on the InPlay Live membership, and you can, learn more about those tools and the strategies that we use to succeed in this space. All right, Andrew Pace, you are joining us from beautiful Hawaii this morning. Looks gorgeous. I can see the reflection in the mirror behind you there. Just give us a sense at why you're in Hawaii. This is a regular trip for you.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a regular trip. Obviously fortunate with some of the betting profits I've earned over the last sort of decade or more. And once I kind of hit a certain level, I decided to, this isn't exactly giving back, but give back to my family for supporting me in the journey that, I have as a sports value analyst. So take them out to Hawaii. My mom and dad aren't here yet, but they'll be joining me this week. And yeah, just get away and just unplug. And Hawaii is just such an incredible place. It's truly just magical, and it really allows you to disconnect from some of the challenging winters in Canada. So, like, separately of disconnecting from sports is the disconnecting from the weather itself. So I live in Vancouver. If a lot of people assume Vancouver just gets all this snow, it's more like Seattle. We just get a lot of rain, but you come over to Hawaii, and I'm looking out off my balcony right now, and just in the time that you asked me this question, I think I've seen about 6 different whales jump out of the ocean in front of me. So it's whale season here, and all the humpbacks from like literally around the world, the mums come to give birth here. So they just frolic around in front of the tourists all on the beach, and yeah, it's a pretty special place, and a great display overall of some of the benefits of getting to do this, because it's the NHL All-Star break. So during the NHL All-Star break, I personally am very focused on hockey, so I get a little bit of an unplug from that, and it gives me the opportunity to get away.
The other break taking place right now is the 2-week break between championship weekend and the Super Bowl, NFL, of course. We just came out of championship weekend. Give me a sense of what you think about this Super Bowl matchup. Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers. The line initially opened at -2.5 in favor of the 49ers, and I think it's moved since then. I think it might be 1.5 now. I think it could be a pick'em by the time game day rolls around.
Yeah, I think in general, most Super Bowls should be a pick'em. I love getting a team as an underdog. The Chiefs were underdogs last year, and not only were they underdogs, they're down 10 at half. So last year's Super Bowl was actually, I think, the single best betting game, not betting day, betting game I've ever had. I think I profited over $55,000 going 12 for 12 on last year's Super Bowl. And my dad, it's funny, he's always like, Super Bowl rolls around, and that's when, it really comes up in the media. Really good to touch on a few things associated with some traps and things like that in this episode with the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's exploding in the media, and my dad goes, who's going to win the Super Bowl? I'm like, Dad, you still really don't get it, do you? But I said to him last year, and I say this to everyone each year, the Super Bowl is just one game. chances are it's not going to be a special game to bet on, just because of the stars kind of have to align. A typical Sunday morning where you have potentially 8 or 9 games on, you can usually cherry pick a couple of those games that are fitting what it is that you're sort of trying to wager on. And the reverse of that people do is they try to fit the strategy to the game when there's only one game on. So with the Super Bowl just being this one game, it's really nothing to get excited about from a betting perspective, even though we're going to be inundated and bombarded with what we should bet, from the Gatorade bath to the color of outfits to, of course, the game itself. So yeah, I think it's this time of year, number one, like I said, had a great Super Bowl last year. I certainly don't expect that this year. Number two, if you've never bet before, it's almost, when Super Bowl comes around, you feel like you're supposed to. We like to swim against the tide. If you want to place a recreational entertainment bet on the game, by all means, go do it. But the whole infrastructure and landscape of the betting industry is just trying to bring people in and to get as much action on this game as they possibly can. And because it's the biggest handle of any single event that anyone, that any sports book offers for the whole year, they get a lot of balanced action. So they get money on both sides of most of their wagers, leading to profit for them and not necessarily the player. So always remember that. Put your thinking cap on this time of year. And I'm not saying don't do any of it. I'm going to do it. Just make sure you enter the arena with that knowledge.
Yeah, you touched on some really great points there. One, if you do, if you are part of In Play Live, that means the strategies already that we use in NFL football. And if you're not a part of In Play Live, then you don't know the strategy. So this might be more for people in the community. But that whole idea of not forcing the strategy onto the game, I think, can be difficult for people at times, right? Because it is the only game on. These are the strategies that have been successful for the past season, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to fit into this Super Bowl game.
Exactly.
And I guess the other one that you talked about there is this whole notion that you were going to be bombarded to bet. And I guess this is for all the recreational bettors out there, or the people who only bet occasionally, or aren't doing it day in, day out the way that you and I are, and many members of the community are. But these are people who are going to sort of be like, oh, I should put something down on this game because I'm going to be sitting there watching it with all my friends. And I suppose that there's nothing wrong with that, but I guess, how do you do that responsibly? How, what message, do you want to put out there for the people as they sort of go to place their action? What kind of traps might the books be looking to set for them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got a lot more coming up regarding the Super Bowl, because we will do a full episode on the Super Bowl next week. Really looking forward to that, and chatting with some of the other pros and In Play Live, and sort of getting their approaches to the Super Bowl, and even kind of looking back on the season as a whole, because I think for a lot of us who sort of built our lives kind of around NFL season, especially, I'm also thinking about all the fantasy players out there as well. The Super Bowl can actually be kind of a sad event. Right. It's the end of the season. It's the longest amount of time we have before the next game. It's kind of like marking the end of this time of the year that we've all enjoyed so much. So it'll be nice to kind of look back on things with some of the other pros at In Play Live to kind of get a sense of how the season went and what they're going to sort of be looking to do next season, and kind of, rejigging the tools a little bit and that kind of thing. So you can expect all of that next week. Really looking forward to that. But on today's show, we've got, as I mentioned, the CEO of Stax, which is an exchange in Ontario, the very first betting exchange in Ontario. And Justin Deutsch is the CEO. I had the pleasure of chatting with him. Pace, you weren't able to join for this conversation because, of course, you were en route to Hawaii, but still a very interesting conversation. And so why don't we play that for you now? Here's Justin Deutsch, CEO of Stax. Justin Deutsch, CEO of Stax. Thanks for coming on Behind the Lines. Really happy to have you here. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Shane. Doing well. How about yourself?
So right off the top here, Stax, We were talking just before the interview started here. It's actually STX.app when you're looking for it. I've been telling everybody we're having the CEO of STX come on, and clearly that's not the case. It is Stax.
Stax is the brand.
So talk to me a little bit about Stax. It's an exchange. It's the first betting exchange in the province of Ontario, a fully regulated market. So give our audience a sense of how an exchange works. It's very different than a typical sports betting site, right?
Sure. So the biggest difference is that we give you as the player the ability to go in and essentially ask for or set your own line. So think of it as if you were betting, a friend at a bar and there wasn't per se a bookie in the bar. You would say, hey, we're watching the Chiefs-Ravens game. I think they're going to win by more than a field goal. And you go in and say, all right, but I'll risk my $55 to your $45 on that bet. And so that's ultimately the biggest difference between exchange and sportsbook is instead of betting against one party being the bookie who has essentially all control over what goes on, we are mediating that and putting two peers together to be able to bet against each other.
So let me get this right then. I go on and I set my own line. So, I've downloaded a Stax. I've got the app here on my phone, right? I'm fully logged in here, and I'm glad you brought up, the NFL game, because why don't we go and have a look here at the Super Bowl? So if I go to markets, I can go to NFL, Super Bowl. Now here's kind of what I'm looking at, right? So explain this to me. If I want to get on one side, because I've got a side that says bid, I've got a side that says offer. What's the difference there, and how do I know what I'm taking? I've got 49ers as one market, 49ers as Chiefs, right? I'm just going to sort of hold that up, but just kind of explain how I would go about it if, say, I wanted to bet on the 49ers.
So let's say you want to bet on the Niners. So you would go into the 49ers market, and this view will show you more options. So now there's only two teams left in the Super Bowl, but say 3 weeks ago, you would have had 20 options in there. And so that view is more to see, the landscape of the NFL right now and the odds of every team. But to actually bet on yes or no on a given team, you would go in and click in their market. So in this case, I would have you click into the San Francisco 49ers market, and you would see two sides of that market, one being a bid and one being an offer. All of our markets are binary options where it either settles into $100 if the outcome is yes or $0 if the outcome is no. And so you'd be buying and selling within the lifetime of that market. As if you think it's going to happen, you'd be buying. And if you don't think it's going to happen, you would be selling.
Oh, okay. So if I think the 49ers are going to lose, meaning I think the Chiefs are going to win, I have two ways to go about betting it.
You now have two ways.
Sell
you could buy
on the 49ers winning, or I could bid on the Chiefs losing. If I don't know if I said that correctly, but I have two ways to bid.
You would either bid on the 49ers to win, or you would put in an offer on the Chiefs, which would mean you think that they're going to lose.
Right. Okay. So you can bet. That's interesting in that you have the sort of two ways to make essentially the same bet.
Yeah, and that's not common. You happen to pick a circumstance where that is the case. But if you go look, for example, at an NBA game tonight, which may be a little easier, you would see, like I'm looking at Clippers Cleveland, and you would just go in and you would see Cleveland plus 2.5. And that market is saying you're betting, if you're buying that, you're betting on Cleveland plus 2.5. And if you're selling that, you're saying Cleveland won't cover 2.5, which is the equivalent of betting the Clippers minus 2.5.
So if I want to go Clippers minus 2.5, then I'm clicking the offer on the Cleveland plus 2.5 side there.
Exactly. So you would be selling to someone else who is trying to buy the Cavs plus the 2.5.
Now I see the quantity on these then. So when we'll stay with this NBA market here with the Cleveland side of plus 2.5. So I see quantity 5 for the bid side, and I see quantity 11 for the offer side. Does that mean that we've got 11 people who have essentially, taken the minus 2.5, and we've got 5 people who have taken the plus 2.5? Am I understanding that correctly?
It's not people, it's actually contracts. And this comes sort of from like the traditional financial landscape. It would be equivalent to buying 10 shares of Apple. The number, you don't necessarily know that that's coming from one counterparty. That's just what's available at the best price at that given time in the order book. And so each of those is a contract. It may all be from the same person. It may be from 11 different people. It shouldn't matter to you as the bettor, though. You want to be able to know how much you can bet at a certain line at a certain time, where if you went to a traditional sports book, you put in your bet and then you have to wait for them to look at it and tell you, no, we're not going to take your $800 bet. Since you're a sharp bettor, we're only going to take $5.59 of it. We show you ahead of time how much is available in terms of liquidity at different prices in the order book.
Right. Okay. Gotcha there. Okay. So it's not necessarily the number of people; it's the number of contracts available. What if the number's really low? Like, what if on the one side there's only 5? And give me a sense too. You say each one is $100. Does that mean each contract is $100?
Each contract settles into either $0 or $100. And
Right.
So let's take, for example, one contract that is a coin flip, a true 50-50. So I buy it for $50, you sell it for $50. That would be one contract where the winner takes home the full $100. And then if you look at this market now has 3 at the best offer, it would be $300 would go to the winner of that bet. And how much you're risking is based on the price that it trades at.
Gotcha. Okay. And I can't bet then more than what's available, or I can't wager more than the contracts available.
So there's 2 modes that you can look at, simple mode and pro mode. In simple mode, you can see just the best available price. So one line in the order book, this is what you could bet either team for, and this is the amount. In the pro mode, we actually show you the depth of the order book, saying, okay, I might be able to only bet $50 at this best price, but I can actually bet $2,000 if I'm willing to take, a cent or 2 worse than that. Then the third option is if you want to bet more than what's available throughout the order book, you can always go in and put in a limit order saying, hey guys, I'm sitting here and I want, $10,000 bet on Cleveland plus 2.5 for, at even money. And you put that in, and then everyone else in the ecosystem can come in and take bits and chunks out of that. Say I want, someone else wants 100. The next guy wants 500. The next guy wants 800. And then it adds up. And eventually the more people and liquidity we get on the platform, the more likely you get your full bet in at the price that you want, rather than needing to go to a sports book and say, hey, I want this amount, and them tell you, no, we can't do that for you. And you don't really have a secondary option to go to.
Yeah. Try to get 10 grand in on some markets. That some of the sports books can be very difficult, depending on what you're looking at betting and where. Okay. So I think I got a better understanding of how it works. How does Stax make a profit here then? Because essentially I'm now betting against another customer, right?
Right. So we're rolling out actually next month a loyalty program, which will show you sort of the commission tier you would fall in. So depending on how much you bet, you'll fall into different commission rates, and we would take a fee on your profitable settlements. And so if you make a bet, and let's say you make $200, we would take up to a 3% fee on that $200.
Yeah. So you said 3% on $200. Does the fee go up from there, or is it capped at 3%? So it'd be 3% on $10,000. It'll
be capped at 3%, and that will be for the lowest volume players. So if you just come on and we don't know your betting habits or anything, you come on and you bet $20 on a game, it'll be 3%. But if you come on and you're betting thousands of dollars consistently, and you accrue what are called Stax points, you then will get down to potentially a 0% commission rate, at which point we would not be making any money off you on your betting. And the hopes would be that we get enough people involved in the platform where there's constantly, a refreshment of new players that are paying those fees, in essence, to subsidize the more, experienced and veteran players who have been on a long time. And so that's our way of incentivizing loyalty, because a big problem from my perspective in this industry is these big sports books do a lot to, acquire a customer. But once you're on, it's really hard to retain one, from going from DraftKings to FanDuel to MGM or Caesars or Bet365. And so loyalty, in our opinion, it will be really important. We want people to stick with Stax. And the more you bet on it, the more perks you will get, especially when it comes to commission rates.
So, on this topic of loyalty and customer retention and losing customers and that kind of thing, then I want to kind of ask you about that. It sounds like that you're, your kind of business model is not based off of customer loss, like a lot of the sports books.
Correct. The biggest difference between an exchange and a sports book is we are not betting against you. So our customer service relationship is, what can we do to make your experience better, to make it so you can make more money, not so we can make more money off of you. And that in and of itself creates a different dynamic of the way that we talk with customers, what we want to engage with. Every time a customer comes on, we send you a note asking for feedback. Have you looked at the app? What can we do better to make you understand and be able to use this? Because at the end of the day, we're going to be a high volume, low margin business. And every other industry that looks anything like an asset class ultimately evolves into a high margin or a high volume, low margin industry. For some reason in sports betting, everything is going the other way. So you have traditional sports books that are getting regulators to approve new features that are higher margin. So same game parlays, for example, if you actually did the math on a same game parlay, it's way worse odds than if you were just betting a buddy at a bar and even paying 3% commission to the bartender, right? So like, that's where it's interesting to me that in every other, I come from crypto, I come from traditional equities. In all of those industries, it's all about what can we do to bring down margin as a community and to make it more fair. And for some reason in sports betting, it's going the other way, and we're trying to buck that trend and bring it back to more favorable outcomes for players, not only sharps, but retail recreational players also.
Exchanges, until now and have been, like you're the first in Ontario. I know of one or two others in North America, that aren't in the Ontario regulated market. But I'm familiar with a bunch in the UK and in Europe. So they're a little bit ahead of us in that sense when it comes to sort of adoption of exchanges. I guess, how do you see Stax growing in Ontario, in the Ontario market, but do you also see it sort of expanding beyond Ontario to the rest of North America? And how do you go about trying to get people to understand what it is you're doing while they're betting on FanDuel, DraftKings, 365,
right,
all the typical ones?
Yeah, so I think that the start is more sharp bettors and institutional like players. Those folks will probably learn it a lot quicker because they're somewhat forced to, because their business model is to make money on sports betting, and they're going to be more price sensitive than someone who's willing to go, bet a same game parlay at a FanDuel. And so the idea is that once we build up this community of folks who care about price, want to be able to get their best bet off, then we end up with a point where our pricing, and it already has somewhat gotten there, where if you look at an odds aggregator or a bet stamp, for example, you're going to see Stax has the best price. And, come game time, I'd say roughly 50%, if not more, of major market spreads, totals, money lines. And once you have that, then as a recreational player, at some point you get tired of losing. And it's how I got into, this side of the sports betting industry. I was a losing recreational sports bettor that once I started betting against peers in the trading industry, realized I could actually make money doing it, but there was no infrastructure in the regulated space to be able to do that. And so that's really what we're providing, is the infrastructure to show that pricing can be a heck of a lot better than minus 110, minus 110. And we're starting to show that. Now it's about educating users. For example, like you weren't positive what you were looking at right when you looked. And, while I built this more with the trader in mind, now we've shifted our interface. We're dedicating more resources to attracting a retail sports bettor who does understand things like American odds and decimal odds better than 0 to 100 pricing. And so we recognize that. Obviously, like, we're still new to market, but that's the key, is that we're going to listen to people like you and others out there. And we have the ability to actually build off of that quickly and deliver in 2 weeks what it might take one of the behemoths in the industry, 6 months to give you, if they want to pay attention to you at all, because realistically, you probably aren't going to be that important to them, especially if you're a winning bettor.
Yeah. Not only are you not important, you're a problem for them as a winning bettor. Exactly. And we often talk about getting limited on this podcast, and how to go about it and what to do next after getting limited, because that's such a frequent problem for us. And so it's something that we kind of talk about at length here. But I got to ask you then, when I go onto the, and to be honest, I haven't placed my first, I guess I'll call it my first contract on Stax. but I'm looking forward to it. But there's a lot of you really only have a few markets at this stage. So what does the plan look like when it comes to developing more markets?
Yeah, so developing more markets, getting into new jurisdictions, all in the roadmap. For right now, our focus is on concentrating liquidity where we believe, bettors want to be betting large sums. And so, you're not, whatever sportsbook you go to, if you want to put a big bet on some obscure prop, you're probably not going to get it down because they don't have enough information to be able to analyze what the price should be. And if you do get it down, you're probably paying a pretty significant margin on that. And so our focus was first to disrupt the core markets, the ones that are priced it pretty efficiently, because you shouldn't be paying the 10%, 12% hold on those markets. And then from there, start releasing more and more. And, the product feature I'm most excited about that hopefully we roll out later in the year will be for you as the player to be able to tell us, hey, I want to see a market on X, Y, or Z. And as long as we can verify the outcome of it, our technology is suited to be able to put that market up for you to be able to go place orders and be on the other side of it. What we want to avoid is releasing all of these markets like a lot of these sports books do and showing you all the glitz and glory. And then when you go actually place a bet, they're like, sorry, we'll only let you bet, $10 on that. Well, it's not really helpful to me to be able to bet, all these crazy things if I can't actually bet an amount that's equivalent to at least one unit, of what I'm betting on a spread. And so our focus has been more so on those core markets, but certainly we want to be able to take on any action that players in Ontario and other North American jurisdictions will want at some point in the near future.
Earlier, you brought up the idea of how sort of bad the odds are when you make a parlay, a same game parlay, which are super heavily promoted by the sports books and something we often sort of speak out kind of against, at least if you want to be a long-term winning bettor. There's nothing wrong with making a same game parlay if it's all just for fun and, that's what you're about. But if you want to be a long-term winning sports bettor, you probably want to ditch the parlays altogether, or at least, for the most part. But could you do a parlay on something like Stax? How would that work?
So right now we aren't offering parlays for a lot of the reasons I just mentioned, but theoretically and in the roadmap, you will be able to. So what you would say is, and this is even cooler, is not only will you be able to bet a parlay, you'll be able to bet against a parlay. So if you really want to be a winning sports bettor, the best thing that you can do to be a winning sports bettor is go be the book. It's really expensive to do it if you want to do it in a regulated market. And so a lot of folks are going to sit back and be like, I'll just be the player. Well, we take all of that burden off of you and let you be the bookie on a platform where you don't need to pay any of the operational costs. And so you'll be able to go on and say, all right, Anthony Davis over points, LeBron under assists. I want to parlay those. All you need is someone on the other side willing to take the opposite. So you're going to get better pricing on both sides, and you get the ability to be the bookie on it if you prefer that. And so that, once we build up this community of users, we will be able to offer pretty much anything that you see in a traditional sports book with better pricing and more optionality and risk mitigating tools.
I love this idea of being able to bet against someone else's parlay. That just sounds like gold to me.
Sounds like free money.
In a lot of ways, it sounds like it would be a great option to explore. Okay, so Justin, you brought up sort of that a big part of your strategy, for at least these initial stages of your growth and development is bringing in sharp sports bettors and sort of, people who are more kind of entrenched in the ecosystem already. This podcast speaks to a lot of sharp bettors out there. Many members of our community into the 6-figure, 7-figure bankroll territory. Like I mentioned, the problems for them are things like getting limited, not being able to bet enough money on certain wagers that they like. And a big focus too at In-Play Live is exactly that: live sports betting and in time, real time wagers. What would you say to our community about exchanges? And I guess, how would you convince them to, explore it?
First thing I would say is if making money betting on sports is actually what you're in this for, then not having access to an exchange or frankly any sports book that you could possibly, get money down at is doing yourself a disservice. So take the time to set up accounts, to learn, to be able to have those outs. That's first and foremost. We've seen a good amount of people come on and, like you, be confused at first. And when I first got into trading, I was confused too. It really doesn't take that long to learn it. And once you do learn it, you're never going to want to go back the other way, just because there's so much more optionality for you. And just spread the word, because the beauty of our platform is it gets better with more people on it. And so by you being on it, if you want the best prices, the best outcomes, the best potential profitability, it's going to benefit you to bring on 100 more people that think like you. And at the end of the day, everyone has a different sports betting strategy. If being a sharp just meant, arbing or taking advantage of some price inefficiency, then maybe not. But there are folks out there who do treat sports betting with analytics and, like a hedge fund would, equities, where you want to take a position on a game that others may think is a good price. And so the more people that, are trying to bet big amounts, trying to get best price, that are in the community, the better off it's going to be for everyone else, which creates this network effect that ultimately, puts us in conversations of being able to compete with a lot of these bigger sports books.
Justin Deutsch, CEO of Stax. Justin, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And best of luck to you and the team at Stax. We would love to probably have you back on the show at some point in the future. And in the meantime, I will learn how to use it.
Appreciate it, Shane. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. All right, Justin Deutsch with Stax, the CEO of Stax. Man, I learned a lot there. I think it's a bit funny too, because I'm trying to, figure out how to place a wager on this guy's site. I was trying to do it ahead of time, but I didn't really understand it, so I didn't feel like I should go ahead and do it. But now I feel a little more confident, and I'm planning to play with the app a little bit and kind of learn a little bit about it. But Pace, what did you think of him? What do you think of what they're doing over there at Stax?
Yeah, exchange has been around for a long time. And I remember, in my book hunt journey years ago, obviously coming across Betfair and a few others, and, being denied access in North America. So a lot of people that are watching this that are from the UK would kind of laugh and be like, these guys don't know what an exchange is. Well, we do. Shane, maybe not as well as I did there in the beginning, but the simple reality is that as up until recently, we just haven't been able to actually use them. So I like to think about it. I just go back to the early 2000s or mid 2000s, where you go, poker's sort of booming and poker's exploding. An exchange is very much like a poker table. You've got the casino there taking a cut, whether it's a tournament or an actual cash table game, based on a percentage of hands being played, and everyone else is just playing against each other. If you want to fold your hand, you can fold your hand. If you want to put forth the wager that you want to put forth, you have that opportunity. And what's nice about that is, just from the standpoint of wanting a specific line, the market provided, again, liquidity liquidity sounds like the issue, but also the solution. You put a market together, or a line together, and that's the line that you want. Well, the other side of that line being bought will be dictated by the market. And if you post a line that doesn't get bought, you probably wasn't the right wager to offer. And then the flip side to that is, if you want a wager and it does completely get bought up, you're getting the action in that specifically you wanted to get in. So I thought that was all really cool. We didn't get into the discussion of live wagering on their platform, but I do know that opportunity exists as well. So a lot of people may watch this and say, "Oh, it's just this," or "It's just that." Those opportunities do exist, and we're going to be getting into that quite a bit more very soon on this show, which I'm really excited for. Now, a lot of really cool things that he touched on. referencing the sports betting landscape as an asset class, and referencing Stax as the low margin solution in that space, was something that just kind of sat really well with me. The concept of peer-to-peer wagering implies, of course, that no players get limited. So when you're looking at this landscape as a whole, the more competitive that these types of companies become, the better off the player is. Number one, as he touched on, you want to have lots of accounts. So it gives you another option, another alternative. Number two, being able to set lines that you want and then have the market fill them, which we touched on, just being so powerful. And I think finally, just relating to all of that stuff, having those options and alternatives, but then also being able to decline, where you go, the line is moved, I'm pulling this offer out, and being able to be very hands-on with the approach that you're taking with your betting styles and strategies. So really, really cool stuff. And really excited. These are the people in the industry that, as In Play Live, Behind the Lines, whatever you want to call it, we really do want to succeed. So a sports book like that, obviously, I'm more than happy to support and promote, for that matter. Like, we've had sports books on here before, and we're going to have more sports books on here before, where we can make some suggestions about what we would like to see. But ultimately, at the end of the day, those are their decisions, and the decisions that Justin is making with this platform are ones that I can get behind and support at this time, right? So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, what really stood out to me there from the conversation is one, not just a desire to attract sharp action, but this product that they're creating is very much at this stage, in the early stages, and its success is dependent on sharp action. And he kind of made that clear, that they need the sharp action at that book to build the ecosystem of it all. And I thought that was really interesting. Whereas all the rest of the industry tries to eliminate sharp action and limit us and get rid of us, and just kind of take that the small losses from us that they'll have to eat as sort of a cost of doing business. But they're all investing in their algorithms to identify sharp action quicker and eliminate it faster. These guys are saying no, it's almost the complete opposite of that. We need sharp action, and our product won't be successful without it.
Yeah, it's essentially the sharp action that's setting the lines, right?
Yeah.
So it's awesome, and definitely something that we want to see succeed. There's hope in the industry when these conversations happen and these businesses get put forth. And one thing that is just really cool is the fact that, Shane, you can go today and place a wager there that might not exist, but that you want, that could get fulfilled, and it's in a regulated market in Ontario, where it's like you just became a sports book yourself, or a bookie yourself, not necessarily from the standpoint of trying to take someone else's money, but simply the line that you wanted to wager on being offered in a regulated landscape because of this infrastructure that has been set up. Also, I think it's worth noting, I haven't seen those lines and how it all works specifically. Just not being in Ontario myself, but if you go to the Bet365s, the FanDuels, the DraftKings, and you put together a parlay or a recreational wager, then you head over to a Pinnacle or a bookmaker, or in theory an exchange like Stax, you're going to put together a wager that pound for pound will pay much more on these other sites. So if I go over to Pinnacle and I'm like, I'm going to put together this parlay, it might pay a significant amount more than these other sites that these people are using. So for the recreational players that are being inundated with all these ads, wouldn't you rather win a couple $100 more on your parlay than $200 less? These sites have better lines and better offerings. So definitely something that even recreational players should be keeping in mind. Yeah, it might not be as flashy as Bet365, right? But head over there, check it out, place some wagers. If you're gonna string together some parlays, just do a little shopping, guys. Like don't grab the same thing off the shelf at the grocery store that costs much more money. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the parlays. That whole idea of somebody could post their parlay and I can go and bet against it. That's kind of interesting too. It might be kind of fun to kind of experiment with that as this thing kind of grows. And if you see that sort of thing out there, hey, oh, somebody's got this 3 or 4 leg parlay. It might be worth, it'll be a high juice, I'm sure, to bet against their parlay, but it might be worth it, right?
Totally. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly if that's how it works. I think that my experience with them in the past is that you fill a percentage of the order through clicking on that particular game as it's added to your parlay. But I really don't know how that side of it works. I don't know if I build up a parlay myself and post it, and someone can just go in there and accept the other side. There's a reason why these sports books love these parlays, because they can handle the risk of them, right? So like if this guy's parlay pays at $100,000 and you have to pay it out, I know that can sink people really quick. And there are people that play in the cash business, like bookies, that have been completely sunk by someone hitting a parlay. So also something to keep in mind on that side of things, of course.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for this week. But a couple of things to note, as I mentioned, coming up next week, we will talk all things Super Bowl, and we'll have a whole group of In-Play Live pros, members of the flock, on the show. And as Pace, you alluded to this earlier, we will be talking more about the idea of exchanges in the future as well in the next few weeks. We'll plan to talk to the executives from another one and really kind of dive into it. And, for me, this is just a great sort of learning process, and I'm really excited to sort of see where those go in the future. So, lots to look forward to there. Also coming up in this time of year, we are really kind of dialing into college basketball within the In-Play Live community. If you like college basketball, and you're not a part of the community, this is a great time to join and find out what it's all about, because we kind of really kind of dial it in now. And a big part of that process is that sort of new for members this year is the OddsJam tool, which is available. And providing live odds on all of these games all at once. It's really helpful. I find it really helpful. But Pace, I don't know, how do you find it when you're looking at college basketball lines?
Well, it's just great to quickly know, like, I am about to spin 215 and a half as a total, and there's a 214 and a 217 out there. So if you like to middle, awesome. You just found yourself a nice 3-point middle. But if you like to uncover a softer line, well, you just saw the soft at the 214 and the 217, depending on which side of that game you're betting on. Again, you don't go to a grocery store and buy the more expensive product that's the exact same as the other one. You'd grab the one that is a little bit cheaper. So it just makes things actually that simple. So you can use promo code In-Play Live for 35% off your first month. In-Play Live 15 for 15% off every month over at oddsjam.com.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Well, enjoy Hawaii. Enjoy the break and the vacation. Recharge. And I guess we will see you live again on Super Bowl, perhaps on a live stream or something like that. But really enjoy that time of disconnecting, unplugging, and spending time with your family. You definitely have earned it. So enjoy, buddy.
Appreciate it. Cheers, Shane.
Bucks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In-Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.